welcome to your deep dive. We're all set to unpack the source material you brought us today.
Absolutely. Yeah. Think of us as your guides, kind of navigating this information with you, trying to pull out the key insights here.
And today, you've given us a really interesting one. It's the rapidly changing relationship between Elon Musk and Donald Trump over the past year or so, right?
That's right. And your main source for this deep dive is it's a timeline article from ABC News. It details events basically from mid-2024 right up to, well, just days ago, early June 2025.
Yeah, and the opening of your source really frames it well. It sets the stage for this dramatic shift we're going to explore. It describes Musk as, let me read this quote, once a key member of President Donald Trump's inner circle, a major campaign donor, and a scene-stealing presence at cabinet meetings.
Right, quite the picture.
Only for that relationship to dissolve into a bitter public feud really quickly after he left his White House job.
So, our mission today, and we're using only the specific details, the events in your timeline here, is to trace how that happened. How did that relationship, as this source presents it, change so fast and, so publicly?
Okay, let's dive in then. Let's unpack this. Your timeline, it starts back in mid-2024, and it paints a pretty clear picture of, well, an alliance. Support.
Yeah, it kicks off July 13th, 2024. This is right after the assassination attempt on Trump. The timeline notes Musk posted a video of Trump on X saying, "I fully endorse President Trump and hope for his rapid recovery."
Pretty unambiguous statement of support right there at the start of this period your source covers. Okay, so moving into August, August 12th, Musk hosts an interview with Trump directly on X.
That one, yeah, the timeline mentions it was plagued with technical difficulties, apparently. But still, it reportedly drew this huge audience, 1.3 million. And during that interview, Musk apparently praised Trump, for how he handled the assassination attempt, criticized Kamala Harris. But interestingly, the source also points out that Musk did push back on some of Trump's claims about climate change.
Huh. So even back then, in that sort of public alliance phase.
Yeah.
It wasn't total agreement on every single thing.
Seems that way based on this detail in your source, yeah.
Okay, that is a telling detail.
Uh-huh.
Let's fast forward then. October 5th, 2024. Your timeline puts Musk right there with Trump at a rally. Butler, Pennsylvania. That's the site of the assassination attempt.
Right. And Musk urged people there to register to vote. And the article, it quotes him saying something pretty strong like, "If they don't, this will be the last election." That's my prediction.
And your source describes that as echoing sentiments similar to Trump's.
Yeah. And then there's the money aspect around this time.
Right, the financial backing.
Right.
Federal Election Commission filings, your source says, show Musk spent over $270 million of his own money through 2 super PACs promoting Trump, promoting other Republicans in the 2024 election.
I mean, $270 million. That's a huge number. Your source really underscores the commitment there, the financial commitment during that phase.
Absolutely. Based purely on what's in your timeline, it paints a picture of very strong support.
Yeah.
Okay, so that sets the stage. Alliance, campaign support, then the timeline moves into the transition phase. This is after the election, late 2024.
November 5th, election night. Your source notes Musk spent the evening, and actually several days after that right there, at Trump's Mar-a-Lago club, and apparently weighing in on key staffing decisions.
So clearly involved, deeply involved in the transition, according to this timeline. And it says Musk was even present for at least 2 phone calls Trump had as president-elect. Specifically mentions one with Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky.
And then, just about a week later, November 12th, your source details this big announcement. Trump stating Musk and Vivek Ramaswamy, too, at that point, would lead this new thing, the Department of Government Efficiency, nicknamed DOGE.
DOGE, right. And your source includes Trump's statement about what they were supposed to do. Together, these 2 wonderful Americans will pave the way for my administration to dismantle government bureaucracy, slash excess regulations, cut wasteful expenditures, and restructure federal agencies.
Quite a mandate.
Yeah. And your source does add that Ramaswamy later stepped down from that role.
Right. And just to kind of cap off this period, showing the closeness, later in November 2024, your source says Trump actually joined Musk down in Texas for a SpaceX Starship rocket launch.
Another very public display of connection, as your timeline presents it.
Exactly. Which, okay, that brings us into early 2025, and Musk's role inside the administration really starts taking shape.
January 20th, Inauguration Day. Your source notes Musk was there, attended the inauguration.
Then fast forward a bit, February 11th, The timeline describes this appearance in the Oval Office. Musk was apparently defending his cost-cutting efforts, which were pretty aggressive right across the federal government.
Yeah, and the source points out that even by then, these efforts had already prompted a slew of federal lawsuits.
Right. So pushback was already happening.
And there's that kind of memorable detail your source includes. Musk's son, X, clambers around the Resolute desk as his father and the president address reporters. Seems like the kid sort of stole the spotlight for a moment.
Yeah, an unusual moment, definitely captured in your source. But things seem to get maybe more central and perhaps lead to a bit more friction just a couple of weeks later.
Yeah, it looks that way. February 26th. Your source says Musk takes center stage at Trump's first cabinet meeting of the second term. And this is happening while DOGE's actions are becoming the subject of controversy. Things like trying to fire federal employees, sending out that email demanding workers list their accomplishments every week.
Right, and your source actually recounts this specific exchange. It's pretty interesting. A reporter asks Musk if any cabinet members are unhappy about that email, and Trump cuts in.
Yeah, Trump jumps in, and he's quoted asking the whole group, "Is anybody unhappy with Elon? If you are, we'll throw him out of here. Is anybody unhappy?"
And the source notes, many of whom started laughing, apparently. And Trump added, they have a lot of respect for Elon, while cabinet members reportedly started applauding. And the source adds another detail here. At this meeting, Musk was wearing a black Make America Great Again hat, even though he wasn't an official cabinet member. And he was the first person to speak.
That's quite a scene your source describes. Really highlights Musk's unusual and very prominent position at that moment. But then, just about a week later, March 6th, your source seems to indicate a bit of a shift. Or maybe a clarification.
Yeah, the timeline notes that at another meeting, Trump explicitly tells the cabinet members that they are in charge of their agencies, quote, not Musk.
Okay. Now, Musk apparently posted on X later that the meeting was very productive. But your source connects this to that detail we heard earlier, that some cabinet secretaries had been privately expressed frustration over Musk trying to cut the size of their agencies.
Right. And your source adds that Trump later told reporters he'd warned the cabinet folks that if they didn't make the cuts, well, then Musk and DOGE would take over.
So based on your source, it suggests maybe some underlying tension. Or at least, yeah, a need to clarify who's calling the shots internally.
Seems plausible based on the timeline's description.
Okay, one more event in March here, on the 11th. The timeline says Trump hosts a Tesla showcase right there on the White House lawn.
And the context your source provides here is interesting. It mentions Tesla was facing a sliding bottom line, and there had been recent vandalism and other attacks on the cars.
Right. And your source quotes Trump telling reporters, during this photo op with Musk in the cars, I just want people to know that you can't be penalized for being a patriot, kind of encouraging people to embrace the product.
Yeah, and the timeline adds that the president actually climbs into the front seat of a Tesla for photos and tells reporters he's bought one himself.
So another moment, according to your source, that seems to show support, alignment, publicly at least.
Right. So, looking at the events through early 2025, yeah, there are maybe hints of friction, like with the cabinet frustrations mentioned, but overall, your timeline still mostly portrays a close working relationship.
But then, as your source details it, everything just changes dramatically and really, really quickly. The timeline marks this clear turning point in late May 2025.
Yeah, May 27th. According to your source, this is when Musk first publicly criticizes Trump's big legislative push, the One Big Beautiful Bill Act. It was in a CBS News interview.
And your source quotes Musk saying, I was disappointed to see the massive spending bill, frankly, which increases the budget deficit, not just decreases it, and undermines the work that the DOGE team is doing. So, direct criticism of a major Trump initiative.
Then just 2 days later, May 29th, the timeline says Musk announces he's leaving the White House, posts it on X, says his 130-day limit as a special government employee was ending.
Okay, but at that specific moment, your source notes, White House officials were publicly saying, no, he's leaving on good terms, saying he'd stay on as an unofficial advisor.
Right, and the timeline even includes Musk's own X post thanking Trump, saying the DOGE mission will only strengthen over time as it becomes a way of life throughout the government. Sounds pretty amicable there.
Yeah, sounds it. Then, May 31st, your source describes a farewell Oval Office appearance. Musk reportedly told reporters again that he believed DOGE would only grow stronger over time.
And the timeline adds, by this point, Musk's team was claiming DOG had cut $175 billion. But importantly, your source points out this figure, well, it falls considerably short of the $1 trillion goal.
Right, that's a big gap.
And your source also includes this slightly weird detail about Musk having a bruise, claimed he got it asking his son to punch him. And he mentions again looking forward to being a friend and advisor.
So based on these descriptions right around his departure in your source, things still seemed, well, relatively cordial, or at least that's how it was being presented publicly. But the tone, wow, it just absolutely craters according to what comes next in the timeline.
Incredibly fast. Based on this sequence, yeah, your source jumps to June 3rd, just days later. Musk issues a flurry of posts on X attacking the One Big Beautiful Bill Act.
And the language gets really strong. Your source quotes him calling it a massive, outrageous, pork-filled congressional spending bill, a disgusting abomination, adding, "Shame on those who voted for it. You know you did wrong. You know it," and claiming it would massively increase the deficit.
Whoa. Yeah, the language definitely heats up there, according to your source. And the very next day, June 4th, the timeline says Musk continues his attacks. And he's actually telling his followers on social media to call Congress to kill the bill.
Actively mobilizing against it now.
Exactly. And then June 5th, your source marks this as the moment the war of words erupts into a full-on feud.
The full-on feud. And your source lists this rapid escalation from Musk, slamming Trump for ingratitude over the 2024 election.
Okay.
Agreeing with a call for his impeachment.
Wow, impeachment.
Yeah, agreeing with a call for impeachment, knocking the president's signature legislation, and claiming Trump is in the Epstein files.
Jeez. Okay, so it goes from policy disagreement to that, agreeing with impeachment calls, bring up Epstein files. I mean, this timeline shows things just leaping into these intensely personal, politically charged attacks in just a matter of days.
It's incredibly stark in the timeline.
Yeah, and your source details Trump's immediate response. Same day, June 5th. Speaking on TV from the Oval Office, Trump hits back at Musk's criticism, saying he was disappointed in him.
Okay, disappointed. But then later that same day, your source says Trump posts on social media, and the tone shifts again. He states, "Elon was wearing thin. I asked him to leave."
So contradicting the earlier White House line about leaving on good terms.
Right. Trump continues, "I took away his EV mandate that forced everyone to buy electric cars that nobody else wanted, that he knew for months I was going to do, and he just went crazy. Why?"
And then your source highlights, Trump adds this pretty significant note, saying the easiest way to save money would be to, quote, terminate Elon's governmental subsidies and contracts.
Okay, so that sounds like a direct threat, a financial threat. So, based purely on this timeline, in what, maybe a week, less, their relationship goes from these public statements of respect, friendship, after his White House departure, to direct public, personal attacks, and even financial threats.
It's a truly dramatic arc presented in your source material, isn't it? I mean, we've traced it right from the start here. Endorsements, huge campaign support, the financial contributions documented.
Yeah, the deep involvement in the transition, the administration, getting that high-profile White House role, that really prominent cabinet appearance.
All the way through to the policy disagreements being stated openly, the departure announced with that sort of cordial public messaging.
Followed almost immediately by this really public, really bitter feud, playing out on social media, in the news, escalating so quickly into personal attacks, agreeing with impeachment calls, financial threats, all according to the events listed right here in your source.
And your source clearly lays out the public points of conflict. That core policy disagreement over the One Big Beautiful Bill Act, right? Then the different stories about his DOGE role and why he left. And then just the sheer speed of escalation from criticizing policy to these public personal attacks and counterattacks, including those implied financial consequences.
Okay, so here's where it gets really interesting, looking at this timeline laid out like this. What stands out most to you in this incredibly rapid change, this collapse?
Yeah, and maybe for you listening, how does seeing this specific sequence of events laid out in this timeline shape your understanding of their relationship and how it just seemed to, well, publicly dissolve so suddenly?
So what does this all mean? We've taken this deep dive into your source material, the specific timeline from ABC News, detailing the relationship between Elon Musk and Donald Trump from mid-2024 to just now, June 2025.
We saw that significant support phase, the campaign donations, the rallies, then the high-profile White House role, defending those cost-cutting efforts, taking center stage at that first cabinet meeting.
And we've seen the detailed departure followed almost instantly, it seems, by this incredibly public, incredibly bitter feud. Fueled by policy disagreements, yes, but escalating so fast into personal attacks, even financial threats, all is described event by event in your source.
And just to reiterate, this deep dive, it focused only on the specific events and details laid out in the timeline you provided.
Right. So based only on this specific case study presented in your source, thinking about the sheer speed and the nature of this public conflict that's described, especially after these individuals were, in such close proximity to power, what does this tell you? What does it suggest about the dynamics of powerful political alliances today? How quickly they can apparently dissolve, especially in this age of social media?
And maybe what are the broader implications, just based on this one example in your source, when policy disagreements seem to lead so rapidly to such personal public attacks from people who were just days or weeks before working side by side at the very highest levels? Something to think about.
Definitely something to think about. Thank you for bringing the source material for today's deep dive.